The next gift that Paul saw as having been irrevocably given by God to Israel to enable them to be a light to the nations was the gift of temple service. But how that might enable us to become more alive to God may not be quite so easy for us to see, because it appears to be totally Jewish, and even within Judaism being just for the Levites. And of course, their opportunity came to an end when the temple was destroyed in AD 70. But clearly, Paul was seeing far beyond this when he said to the believers in Corinth, "Don't you know that you are God's temple, and that the Holy Spirit dwells among you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple." And it's even more powerful in the original Greek, because for the word that's translated as temple, he used the word naos, which was not the general word for temple that's including the outer courts, but was the word that spoke of the inner sanctuary, the holy place where only the priests could go to perform their duties. And for Gentile believers, this was incredibly significant, given that the penalty for Gentiles who went anywhere beyond the court of the Gentiles was death. So this was the most radical change to the understanding of the temple that had been etched into Israel's thinking for centuries, being the physical epicenter of their worship and the focal point of their identity, and which began when Yeshua cleansed it, and when his authority for doing this was challenged, declaring, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The leaders replying, 46 years this temple was being built, and you will raise it up in 3 days? About which John commented, he was talking about the temple of his body. And then adding that after he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he was talking about this. Then they believed the scripture and the word that Yeshua had spoken. Now, the scripture that John was referring to could have been Psalm 16's prophecy of the resurrection, but it could equally have been God's promise through Ezekiel about the end-time kingdom, saying, "I will cut a covenant of peace with them. It will be an everlasting covenant with them. I will set up my sanctuary among them forever. My dwelling place will be over them. I will be their God, and they will be my people." Because this then pictured the gift of temple service as irrevocable, having first been expressed by the priests in the physical temple, next by Messiah Yeshua as he became the temple when he became flesh and tabernacled amongst us, and then by those who'd believed in him through this challenge. Don't you know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and that you are not your own? For you were bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body. And finally, by Ezekiel's vision of God's dwelling place being in the midst of his people, where their greatest joy will be to serve him, and in doing so to fulfill the prophecy to Israel that you will be called the priests of Adonai. They will speak of you as the ministers of our God. Because with this, the first believers would have seen how the gift of temple service was no longer just for a few priests on a few occasions, like for Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist, who was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to go into the temple of the Lord and burn incense. But now, through how Yeshua had redeemed it, it was all about fulfilling the foundational promise that God had given to Israel, saying, "Now then, if you listen closely to my voice and keep my covenant, then you will be my own treasure from among all people, for all the earth is mine. So as for you, you will be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So through Yeshua, the kingdom of priests and the holy nation could begin with them right there and then, as they chose to be set apart through being in the world, but not of it, by taking the inner sanctuary out into the world whilst not bowing to the ways of the world, through which to demonstrate how God empowered them as they did this. Because what agreement is there between the temple of God and idols? For we are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I will live with them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. And I will be a father to you, and you will be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. And when we understand the gift of temple service like this, we can also experience how it can enable us to become increasingly alive to God and to ourselves demonstrate that we are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the praises of the one who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Which leads into how the gift of the promises further enable the first believers to see how God was outworking his purposes through Yeshua, which Peter declared at the healing of the lame man, saying, heaven must receive him until the time comes for God to restore everything as he promised long ago through his prophets. And about the power of the Holy Spirit, saying, for the promise is for you and your children, and for all who are far away, as many as Adonai, our God, calls to himself. And which Paul similarly emphasized by speaking of the gospel promised beforehand through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, that began with Abraham, who did not waver through unbelief regarding the promise of God, being fully persuaded that God had power to do what he had promised. The importance of which being that if you belong to Messiah, then you are Abraham's seed, heirs according to the promise. Because Abraham was where the first believers' understanding of all God's promises began. That he'd be the father of many nations, and kings would descend from him, that his descendants would inherit a land stretching from the Nile to the Euphrates River, and that through him all the nations of the earth would be blessed. And which can also help us understand how the gift of the promises can enable us to become more alive to God, by seeing why his unconditional promises to Abraham were so important. And not only them, but all those conditional promises regarding what would happen to Israel if they obeyed his word or if they did not. A clue to which comes through David's great declaration, the Lord is faithful to all his promises and righteous in all his ways. And which would have been rooted in his own experience of them, that he then read back through Israel's history to see how God had not just given his promises for Israel's comfort and convenience, but as the means through which Israel could encounter his righteousness in every aspect of its life. Such as how they could equip Israel to stick with their calling even in difficult situations. Having been promised, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. Or through the rivers, they will not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burnt, nor will the flame burn you, for I am Adonai, your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Saviour. and so that they be an example to the world of what happened as a result of whether they were in or out of the flow of its righteousness, as in the blessings and curses promised in Deuteronomy 28, which says, "Now, if you listen obediently to the voice of Adonai your God, taking care to do all his commandments that I am commanding you today, Adonai your God will set you on high above all the nations of the earth. But if you will not listen to the voice of Adonai your God, all these curses will come on you and overtake you." And then as well to envision them for the long haul of life, knowing that finally nations will see your righteousness and all kings your glory. You will be called by a new name, which Adonai's mouth will bestow. You will also be a crown of beauty in the hand of Adonai and a royal diadem in the hand of your God. And by drawing this perspective from Israel's history, the first believers could then see how Yeshua had redeemed the gift of God's promises for the purposes that he'd given them by becoming a servant of the Jews for the sake of God's truth to confirm the promises given to the patriarchs, which then led them to declare, "In him all the promises of God are yes, therefore also through him is the Amen by us to the glory of God." And this gave them the confidence to face whatever they had to, with the expectancy that all the yet to be fulfilled promises of Torah will also be fulfilled. Not least that all Israel will finally be saved when they will look toward me whom they pierced, and that Yeshua will return to become king over all the earth. And also the courage to not only persevere, but also to boldly face opposition, such as Paul did when standing on trial before King Agrippa, and he said, "Yet now I stand here being judged for the hope in the promise made by God to our fathers." Hope being what flows from the gift of temple service and the promises not only enabled the first believers to turn the world upside down, but can also help enable us to become more alive to God, especially when we understand these gifts from the Hebraic perspective. So with that, let's now think about three more questions. How can our continually counting ourselves alive to God be enhanced by drawing from the gift of temple service? And by drawing from the gift of God's promises? And then thirdly, how do the gifts of temple service and the promises produce hope?